with Lebanon being a bit more insistent of getting rid of Hezbollah, or at the very least demilitarizing Hezbollah, the chief, I think his name is Naim Qassem, if I remember correctly. Qassem has said that no, they will not rearm, and if needed, no life left in Lebanon or something like that was quoted him saying, basically threatening at the very least civil war and potentially completely destroying Lebanon in the process. So this is one of the topics we'll talk about today. We'll also bring up from a topic from yesterday, the Toronto International Film Festival that canceled an October 7th documentary over copyright concerns over Hamas is reversing its decision. So I'm sure the reality show has played a role in that. So thank you for reversing the course. We'll also talk about a little bit more about the settlement expansion that is happening, spearheaded by the finance minister Bezalel Smotrich in Israel, as well as the condemnations that are already coming in. And also, if we have time, we'll talk about how Itamar Ben-Gvir met with Marwan Barghouti, and we also have a clip of that. But before we go cover anything, I just want to mention one thing. There is a story that has been going out in the last few hours, reportedly by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is the Israeli-American Joint Control, that dozens of aid workers were attacked by Hamas. I think 9 of them were killed, and 20 tried to seek medical care in Nassem hospital and were denied access by the Doctors Without Borders. Now, we haven't yet been able to get more confirmation about it. Only open source people are sharing it. Once we do have, and the confirmation might come during show, so if we do have it, we'll talk about it more. Yeah, again, if this story is true, it's very problematic. Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on that, or should we go to Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, fog of war. Don't want to comment on it as we don't know anything specific. But we've heard a lot about Israel's supposed attacks on civilians and doctors and helpers. So this is not what we're hearing. And at least in this story, it's quite the opposite. So we'll be eager to get the truth when the truth does come out.
Marco, any thoughts?
Well, it wouldn't be surprising in the first place because Hamas and its supporters, i.e., lots of people in the West, do not want the aid that Israel is stupidly providing to the Palestinians right now to go through. They don't want that operation to be successful because it means vetting everything that gets into Gaza, which means you cannot smuggle weapons into Hamas, and Hamas can. Well, they are getting hold of the food and selling it for profit, but they don't get the bulk of it. And also, if you knew, I mean, this group that allegedly refused to treat the injured people is the Medicines Without Borders, which is also known as, with its French name, Médecins Sans Frontières, which are notorious for having harbored Hamas people. In fact, just a few weeks ago, one of their people were actually proven and seen around the table with other Hamas officials. So they're not good guys just because they got medicine in the title. And we've seen it more and more happening, and we've seen the pictures, and the IDF and Israel's provided evidence, but nobody listens to the kind of stuff.
It's interesting that the open source route for finding information has been a very useful one, but of course, getting that extra step towards it being verified and picked up by newspapers, including Israeli newspapers and news organizations, is a necessary step for corroborating it fully. But it's clearly in its infancy as a story at the moment, but that doesn't mean it's not without merit. Of course, we have seen doctors in all sorts of places, refusing to treat people, even just refusing to treat people because they're Jews, including in Australia, for example, or sometimes worse in some individual cases where medical staff have taken their politics above their Hippocratic oath. And I don't know whether that's to apply that kind of morality to this region might be completely off the wall anyway, but it certainly wouldn't come as a deep shock to me were it proven to be the case. But we'll keep you updated, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess we can share this story has okay, let's just watch this short video that has been mainly shared around.
You may not know this because it wasn't widely reported, but at Nasser Hospital, a busload of our local workers, many of whom now sleep and live on site because of the Hamas threat, a busload was murdered on video. 9 of them were murdered, and the 20 living survivors were dropped at Nasser Hospital, where Doctors Without Borders is, and they were refused treatment. They weren't allowed in, and they were left to die in the courtyard.
So this was Chapin Defay, the spokesperson for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So he's the one who sort of broke this story and has been picked up by many open source people. Now, one more thing that we can mention about this is that Nasser Hospital was, of course, used to keep hostages inside of it. I think back in sort of 2023. So again, this is not a new thing. We've seen this again and again. So with that, let's move on to the main story we had, and it's Lebanon. So Lebanon is trying to really continue their action against Hezbollah, basically saying that they do want to demilitarize it. Of course, Hezbollah is really weak at this point since Israel has destroyed almost all of its offensive capabilities. But it's also important to remember that Hezbollah has been embedded in the south of Lebanon for over 20 years or so, and nobody did anything about it until Israel finally did something about it afterwards. So yeah, Jonathan, any thoughts on do you think Lebanon is truly genuine in their goal? I mean, when it comes to having terrorist nation or sort of terrorist organization inside of your territories, it's definitely not something you want, especially one that is being funded by Iran.
Right. I mean, you need one government. You cannot have competing governments in a society. You need one government. And as I understand it, as Ms. Rand has talked about it, government is the institution that has a monopoly over the use of force. You can't have two competing monopolies over the use of force. There can't be a market in force when it comes to force and within government. So Israel's attack on Hezbollah, the pager attack, we've talked about it as one of the most brilliant preemptive strikes and important strikes in modern warfare history. So anything Lebanon, a very troubled country, can do to rid itself of Hezbollah, to rid itself of this cancer, if you will, I think long term, that's a must if it's ever going to get back on its feet.
Yeah, and one thing that is sort of a bit more positive when it comes to Lebanon. Well, first, I don't want to let them completely escape from this. The fact is they haven't done so, and the sort of blame or the any damage that was done to Lebanese state or Lebanese citizens by Israel is, of course, on them for not doing anything about Hezbollah until now. But if they have a genuine desire to do something about Hezbollah, think that can be supported, especially since what that signifies. I think increasingly you have more Arab nations abandoning Palestinians, which I think is for the good, since the only reason for the existence of Palestinianism is to destroy Israel. And this is the defense Qassem, the chief of Hezbollah, has been saying. He said, Palestine will remain the compass. All that Israel does and all that America supports will not deter the Palestinian people from resistance. So this is, again, Hezbollah was created with the only goal of destroying the Israeli state. So, Marco, any thoughts on where this is going?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not going to bother remembering the name of this chief, because if he continues down this line, it's going to end up like Nasrallah, isn't it? Israel will just drop a nice bomb on it, and we're not going to hear from him ever again. But yeah, his reaction and Hezbollah's reaction is not a surprise at all. I mean, we know that people's actions are generated by their ideas. Ayn Rand in a fiction has presented a panoply of characters with different motivation, different actions, and in the non-fiction, she makes the point how she explained exactly how the action, the thought, the philosophy somebody has enables their actions. And we know what the philosophy of Hezbollah is. We know that Hezbollah has been bankrolled by Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran. So why would you expect Hezbollah to do anything else but spread more hate, anti-Jewish racism, and just follow the cult of death and these people effectively represent and they devote themselves to. So, no surprise there. Hezbollah wants war. Wow. Of course, Hezbollah is as you guys mentioned, is an unusual thing. It's the de facto army in Lebanon because compared to the state official army is so much bigger. Of course, Islamism is much more appealing that protecting your own state and your own citizen in the part of the world. So we know why. Also, there are a few unknown. What was France going to do? France is deep embedded in Lebanon's politics quite heavily. So how are they going to express the anti-Semitism that seems to run wild right now in France? Just over 100 years after the affair Dreyfus, we see anti-Semitism leaving its mark again. There's still lots of balls in the air right now, but I don't think the outcome would be very good, frankly.
I mean, you don't need to remember the name of this Hezbollah chief. You can think of him as Mr. Sweaty, because he was the guy who, sitting in the bunker after Nasrallah was taken out by Israel, gave a press conference from his bunker, absolutely pouring in sweat, and was clearly of a nervous demeanor and under considerable stress, no doubt knowing full well that he was likely the next target. Now he's having another go at a pep talk some time on, rallying his own troops, at rallying the terrorists that operate under him, and of course rallying Iran to keep funding them, or at least hoping that they will. And in the course of his praise, I noticed a lot of his praise is basically for people who are dead, which frankly is a good thing. He's been praising Nasrallah, for example, but he's no more, and he's been praising Soleimani as being integral in getting that funding, that sort of 800 million or so that they got from Iran. So I think the fact that the only people he can turn to in offering his praise are no longer on the planet suggests that he really is on the back foot. And of course, this is kind of desperate stuff in a way. I mean, everything he's warning about is the standard stuff from these kind of guys. He's talking about, well, there'll be lots of internal conflict and civil war if you try and take our weapons from us. The whole occupation, in inverted commas, is an Israeli-American project. And of course, anything that goes wrong if you try and take our weapons won't be Allah's fault. It'll be the Lebanon government's. So don't do it. Is kind of what he's saying. So it's no surprise, but of course the important thing is they haven't attempted this yet. So all the time that Hezbollah is given any space in which to build up its forces, build up its weaponry and its personnel, then that's bad news for Israel and bad news for not having finished the job more thoroughly in the first place. And despite the excellent effort they did make in inroads.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And Naeem Kassem has also. I know. I actually learned the name of this guy because he has been here for a little bit. But I think there was one or two between Nasrallah that I didn't bother with learning about. But yeah, when it comes to something else, he said he of course threatened no life in Lebanon with. And Moran Lebanoni, an analyst at the National Security Studies, has commented on this. Quote, ultimately, if Hezbollah does not want to give up its weapons, the weapons will not be in government hands. The Lebanese government is digging in its heels and sees this as a make or break moment. All the actors understand Hezbollah is in its weakest state, but it still cannot happen without Hezbollah's agreement, because in Lebanon there is always the possibility of descending into internal violence. If Hezbollah feels strong enough and its Iranian backing is significant enough, meaning the Iranians support it, it will open fire on the Lebanese army. And now with that, I think somebody earlier we've talked about this possibility in the past. We said that civil war is probably the only way Lebanon can go into a civilized state. And today we also called it that possibly civil war in Lebanon might be a necessary good. Somebody in the chat said that civil war is never a good thing. Again, this is a price Lebanon will have to pay for inactivity. The fact that it allowed Hezbollah to fester there for so long, the fact that the civilian wing of Hezbollah is currently in the government still and has been in all the in the past governments. So again, Lebanon has allowed this to happen. Now is the best opportunity to get rid of Hezbollah. You will not get a better opportunity. If you do want to do something about it, which it seems like Lebanon is, you have to stay strong and you have to risk potential violence. I think with the general Israeli attitude towards everything, you'll probably get Israeli help with getting rid of Hezbollah. So even though I'm not sure if necessarily Israel should help, but you'll probably get it. So Jonathan, any more thoughts on this?
Well, just a kind of an appreciation of of the importance of ideas, and how, to paraphrase Miss Rand, and it's something I always kind of emphasize because it is so dramatic how much ideas determine the future, not how oil or mineral resources or history or race or anything like that, but it's the ideas that are held by a culture, the ideas that are held by a society. And time again, the countries that embrace freedom, that embrace liberty, that embrace individual rights on any level succeed to the extent that they embrace those Western ideas. And, Lebanon is a great example. I mean, Lebanon could be, as I understand it once was, they used to call it the Paris of the Middle East. I mean, it could be wealthy, successful, emerging just like Israel was 40 and 50 years ago. But what it needs is much better ideas, and not to tolerate any factions whose purpose is amassing weapons and attacking Jews. So it always just amazing to me that, here's this tiny sliver, Israel, a wealthy country, dramatic advancements and to technology and human society, as against almost the entirety of the Middle East, tribal, Islamist, collectivist, poor. And what makes Israel so special? It is its ideas. And if I was in Lebanon or Gaza, that's what I would be trying to emulate.
Yeah, and sort of the importance of ideas and the importance of principles would show Lebanon that, yeah, leaving alone Hezbollah or not doing anything about it for so long will lead to your detriment, right? If you have a terrorist organization that has no desire to actually build a nation, that simply wants to go and attack Israel, this is what will happen. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, Hezbollah is called Hezbollah because it is the name chosen by the Ayatollah Khomeini in the early 80s, soon after the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And since then, it's been effectively a puppet for Iran. It's been funded by Iran. People have been trained and armed by Iran. The ideology is the same Shiite ideology that Iran has. They just hate of life. They worship death. They worship martyrs. They think dead people are more effective than living one because, as Jonathan pointed out, the living one choose a life which is not a life at all. They choose to serve an irrational being. They choose to serve ideas which actually haven't got any connection with reality, and therefore they don't make anything useful. They don't create, they don't produce. And check out the Israeli state, as Jonathan pointed out. Yes, they got a irrational component in the religious stuff, but it's it's generally a secular country. It's a country where reality rules, where you don't put religion as the primary. You just put reality and a man's life as such, the productive life, which makes a population the size of London so incredibly productive and advanced. It's just shocking how much innovation in terms of biology and technology comes out of Israel. It's just incredible. I mean, if you could scale up the kind of productivity to a United States size, I mean, we would be walking on Mars in 15 hours from London. But yeah, Hamas and Hezbollah and this kind of thing represent death and destruction, and they are the opposite of civilization.
And in contrast to what Israel is capable of, everything this guy from Hezbollah is talking about is retrograde. It's backwards looking. He's citing, religious wars from the 7th century. He's talking about how great Hezbollah was for the past 17 years since 2006. It's all backwards looking, and it's all all of that is offers no obviously forward-looking vision. And I think one of the things that strikes me about it is the way that in which he tries to rally the people who clearly are beginning to splinter off in different ways, different levels of support that is clearly beginning to splinter off. That's what you can read between the lines when he points out that this suggestion that Lebanon should the Lebanese government will force him to give up his weapons. He says, "Were you pleased that Netanyahu praised you? Did you notice the joy and the Israeli statements, as if that's proof that you shouldn't do it?" Because obviously he's looking at it from a purely tribal point of view. Now, when you do a comparison with the other side, for example, take, for example, the fact that that Starmer in the UK has promised to recognise a Palestinian state with certain caveats come September. And who praised that? Hamas praised that. Now, praise from the opposite side can be telling, but it depends who it comes from, what their ideology is, and what the full context is. Now, Hamas are terrorists who brutally murdered and raped people on October the 7th and led to this whole conflict, whereas Netanyahu and Israel is trying to defend itself from those very people. So, there's a clear distinction between the two, but it's often badged as if it's the same issue, which it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Naeem Qassem talking about past glory, it's like Manchester United fans talking about, how they used to win in the past, but, are not anymore. So I had to look up this joke because I didn't know which specific football team is like that, but I remember there is one. So all the Manchester United fans of ARCUK can now unsubscribe. Well, with that, let's move on to the other topic we have, and let's cover this one. So on yesterday's episode of the reality show, we talked about the Toronto International Film Festival that has cancelled an October 7th documentary over legal concerns of the footage that was used. Because, of course, if you are making an October 7th documentary, one of the footage you will use is the footage recorded by Hamas terrorists that was recorded with their GoPro cameras. Now, the case that Toronto International Film Festival was making, or was saying that what they are afraid of is legal repercussions, or basically I think the full explanation was they asked the producers of that film for basically to let them know if they have a legal right to use that footage, and they claimed that they didn't get it. Now they reversed that decision over basically the, I think, rightful freak out that happened, since, again, trying to say that Hamas terrorists have a copyright over the footage of them killing people and kidnapping terrorists is ridiculous. Again, it's holding rights as some sort of a floating abstraction that automatically happens instead of what it actually is. Jonathan, any thoughts on this story?
Yeah, when I first heard the story, I truly thought it was from The Onion. The notion that we would respect the intellectual property rights of Hamas terrorists who murdered, raped, and butchered completely innocent Israelis, concert goers, members of kibbutzim. It's hilarious on its face. You have to respect rights if you want your rights respected. And I'm not only glad that the movie has been reinstated and will be shown, but I'd like more people to go out and see it, and go out and see some of the other documentaries that have been made about what happened on October 7th. The footage is so in your face and so real that if it doesn't remind you why winning this war is so important, I don't know what will. So let's not only have this film shown, but let's have great support so people understand, they see the enemy, the threat, the Islamist threat for exactly the monstrous truth for what it is.
Yeah, and people can, as I said, check out our yesterday's episode where we talked about it in more detail. We've also covered the sort of international law aspects of it because, as I was surprised to find out, there is actually sort of a convention. I think it's called Berne Convention, which is an agreement between sort of international agreement between countries that basically, if you copyright something, let's say in the US, it automatically gets a copyright recognition in, let's say, all the European states. So somebody might want to make the case for that, but Palestinian territories are not signatories of that, so no argument there either. And even then, again, the idea that we would recognize intellectual property
Any
rights
of those, they're rights, so-called rights.
Yeah. And as well as I was, of course, sad to find out, as always, this copyright international organization, of course, works under UN as well. So already a bit more skeptical anyway. But Marco, any thoughts from you on this?
Yeah, well, when I read this news about this film, I mean, that's a kind of anti-Semitic, lefty activist-led kind of stupidity that comes out of them, doesn't it? But also the kind of contradiction these pro-Hamas baboons hold in their heads is, first of all, they say, no, Hamas didn't do it. Oh, there's no footage, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, they've got the intellectual property to the footage they've taken. Hang on a second. Has Hamas then taken this footage? Have they committed atrocities you deny they occurred? So, to try and live with the war in the first place. But also, Toronto's in Canada, isn't it? And is Canada the country that has been threatened by the Orange Man with sanctions? So that could well have been playing in the organizer's mind. We don't want to upset the guys in the South because,
Yeah, I mean, this story is depressing, and yet it's so representative, isn't it? On the first hand, you've got any excuse, any possible means of suppressing the reality of people seeing the evidence of October the 7th. People will go for under any erroneous pretext whatsoever. But I'm glad that's been reversed. I mean, in a sense, I'd quite like to see Hamas turning up to court to defend their copyright and being arrested on the spot because for the crimes they've committed, and the copyright should only be ridiculed. And I'm glad that ridicule in this case has caused them to reverse the decision so promptly, and that it's been such a firm response from people. I mean, this is a documentary that chronicles the barbarism of October the 7th, and it shows the barbarians who perpetrated it. Now, those barbarians have forfeited the right to live, let alone to copyright.
Yeah, and with footage that they shot and then posted themselves. So what, they didn't want to get it out there? This is footage that they shot of their atrocities and posted out to the world. All these filmmakers are doing is, in effect, giving them what they wanted, letting everyone see just what abject animals they are.
Yeah, and something I was sort of cheekily wondering about is, are they concerned of the copyright rights of the Hamas? Since technically Hamas is a representative government of Gaza, they won the election. They are holding a majority in basically the non-functioning Palestinian Legislative Council. So technically, is it like a property of Hamas as the Palestinian state, or of individual terrorists that have committed these acts? I don't know which one of these is worse. But yeah, this whole situation is simply ridiculous. And again, it was, as we talked about yesterday with Michael, they don't give a crap about copyright rights. They were pushed towards it because they were And I think this was part of the story. They were scared what would people do if this movie was played, and try to do something about it, and chose this route, which again is also sort of, I think it's called like Barbara Streisand effect or something, that when you try to not give attention to something, you manage to actually give it much more attention. So thank you, Toronto Film Festival, for actually bringing more attention to this documentary. With that, let's move on to one more topic, which we did cover a little bit yesterday, but now we also have a little bit more, and it's the settlement expansion, the E1 area development that is happening east of Jerusalem, spearheaded by Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister of Israel, and also I think he is basically like a sort of like a governor of Judea and Samaria settlement projects. So he's the one dealing with it. Now, this has been a contentious part for a few years now, or maybe even decades now, since this action would functionally sever north and south of so-called West Bank, which would make future Palestinian state even less capable than it was in the past. Now, Palestinians had all the chance again and again and again to establish a state, to come up with some sort of a deal with Israel. To do so, they have been refusing to do so. Israel should simply, I think, in my view, one, apply Israeli law in the Area C, which already is controlled by Israel, and eventually, if people want to move into those areas, if people want to buy land, let them do so. I think the fact that there is like a requirement, or you have to ask for permission to build on the land, is problematic, but this is the mixed economy we live in. So I'll take sort of, let's say, the deregulation sort of aspects of this. Jonathan, any thoughts from you?
Well, I have to say, I don't know too much about the settlements, but if I lived in the Middle East, I would want the Israelis to come and settle near me. You know, I mean, go back and listen to what Miss Rand talked about in her Donahue interview and asked about Israel and the Middle East. And, you know, she talked about how the Israelis, the Jews were resented for bringing modernity, the respective rights, bringing culture, bringing the Western world to the collectivism and the cesspool of the Middle East, and that is still the case. Here we are in 2025, and it explains Israel's wealth. It explains Israel's success. So again, I mean, all these countries that spend all of their energies and all of their resources tunneling against Israel, fighting against Israel, you think that they'd instead maybe think about emulating Israel and understanding what its secret sauce, if you will, is. And it's not aggression towards its neighbors. It's the protection of the rights of its own citizens. And it's from that you get innovations like the USB drive or the Waze transportation system, etc. That's what those advancements and wealth creation come from. So take a tip from the Israelis and learn their ideas to succeed in the future.
Yeah, and just to bring up one more thing, Bezalel Smotrich has also called this, has called this act, hypocritical leaders in Europe will have nothing to recognize. Now, to some extent, at least, it seems like this move by Bezalel Smotrich seems to be a response to many countries. I think I cannot even remember all of them, but I think France, UK, Germany, Australia, Canada, and I might be forgetting a few, and I think a bunch of small ones are considering recognizing the Palestinian state. So I think this is appropriate action, basically saying, yeah, you want to recognize it, well, you will have nowhere to recognize it again. The fact that this is coming unilaterally from the Western nations of recognizing this terrorist state, well, Israel should respond in kind. Thank you, Mary, for your super chat. And also thank you, Bull Moose, for a super chat. He says, if Hezbollah is removed and Lebanon wants to finally recover and start improving life, Israel is probably the best neighbor in the region to help them. I mean, absolutely. Again, any innovation, any like Arab states would benefit from Israeli technology, like the desalination plants. Anything that Israel is doing has been net positive when it comes to the Middle Eastern region. So yeah, if they want to have peace, well, then they'll have peace. Marco?
Yeah, if you forget which country is going to recognize Palestine, just think about which socialist-led state have you got. You might include Spain and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the problem here is that the definition of madness is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. The two-state solution has been tried over and over and over again. From 1948 onwards, it's been rejected by the very people who actually should benefit from it, the Arabs. The Arabs that fight the state of Israel. And as Jonathan pointed out, frankly, if you are a woman, you want to live in Israel if you live in the Middle East. You don't want to be treated like a slave or like commodity as they are treated across every other Islamic nation. If you are in the Alphabet Brigade, LGBT, whatever, you will want to live in Israel because everywhere else you get killed. If you were like a productive guy, somebody who's interested in creating something new, you will want to be in Israel because everywhere else, all your efforts are designed to try and survive through the corruption in the Islamic culture. So frankly, if you have an ounce of brain, you will just join the settlers, you will just join Israel.
And well, I'm just saying, even if you were a so-called Eddie Willers, not that you weren't a genius, you weren't an entrepreneur, you were just an everyday guy, just trying to, you still want to live in Israel, right? To benefit from the products and the production of so many innovative, successful, free people.
Yeah. And I think freedom is the essential thing here. Even if you are, a farmer or somebody who just enjoys a very quiet, unproductive life, you want to be free. And you can only be free in the Middle East if you are in Israel, because Israel is the only state with a proper legislation that guarantees a good extent of individual rights. So that to me is a no-brainer. But of course, it's a no-brainer to somebody if they value life, if they value freedom, if they understand the relationship between a good life, a happy life, a productive and rich life, and freedom. These people don't get it, and that's why their idea should be challenged and their ideology should be wiped out and replaced with civilization.
Yeah, and just to add, if you're Arab, you want to live in Israel. That's the freest country you'll be able to move to or be in when it comes to the broader Middle East region. And yeah, the idea that you are somehow better off under a dictatorship if the guy ruling over you has the same skin color or has the same ethnicity as you, rather than a free nation that recognizes the rights of all its citizens and all of its people. Again, that it's a clear choice.
Yeah. And to back up what you guys have said, I mean, competency in any field at any level requires freedom in order to thrive. And when there is no freedom, that's when that competency gradually gets snuffed out. One of the erroneous, and they're always erroneous, criticisms that Ayn Rand gets is that she's always talking about the superhuman, the very top level of skill and ability, the high IQ people. She's absolutely not, and there are many characters in her books that cover all sorts of different levels of skill and intelligence, and the same philosophy applies to everyone in terms of the benefits that it can offer for allowing competence to survive and to thrive. On this particular issue of the settlements, I think in this region, this E1 region we're talking about, I think a lot of it is or such that there is anything very much there at all anyway. It's sort of Bedouin type of settlements. I mean, we're talking about the opportunity for some actual progress here, aren't we? Some actual, progress towards building, construction, towards creating a proper civilization within a piece of land that is, currently neglected and underused. And as well as the security benefits of ensuring that things like East Jerusalem and the rest of the West Bank aren't able to to threaten Israel from a security standpoint. I think that's important too. So whether this is going to happen or not, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? Because I'm always aware that when some of these prominent Israeli ministers, supposedly on the far right end of the spectrum, make these announcements, whether it will actually go the distance isn't always clear. Sometimes it's more puff than reality, and we'll see whether it's carried out. But certainly, as you pointed out, as a response to the frankly horrendous and hideous declarations by Western leaders that they'll recognize the terrorism of October the 7th, yielding the result that those terrorists wanted in the form of a Palestinian state recognition. This is a counter to that. And even as a piece of rhetoric and counter, it's already got some strength to it.
Yeah, and when we talk about if this might happen, well, we'll go to some of the responses from international community, but Bezalel Smotrich, at least to my understanding, has been pretty very, or not pretty, very open advocate for annexing the Area C of Judea and Samaria. So I think this is very much on par with him, and I think will very likely are to see to happen, because again, this is not really sort of an act of the Israeli government. It's act of Bezalel Smotrich as I think he's like a civilian administrator of the Area C of Judea and Samaria. So let me look up actually the specific title, because I've read it once and I didn't remember what it was. So I'll go back to you. Yeah, so this is again great to see. Now, when it comes to responses, so we have the EU foreign policy chief talking about how this plan violates international law and undermines the two-state solution. Quote, the EU reiterates its call on Israel to halt settlement construction. The British Foreign Secretary David Lammy has called this a flagrant breach of international law that would divide a future Palestinian state in two, which that's the goal, so we're good there. UN spokesperson said the settlement would put an end to prospects of a two-state solution. Settlements go against international law and further entrench the occupation. So again, Israel allowing its citizens to build cheaper housing, or basically just freely allow them to build in an area where nobody is of course breach of international law. But Hamas committing October 7th and Fatah continuing its funding of terrorism is somehow not in the breach of two-state solution or international law. Jonathan, any thoughts on the comments?
Again, just a comment or thought about something I remember Miss Rand writing is that a country that doesn't respect the rights of its own citizens is not going to respect the rights of other countries' citizens. And I see that time and time again. Mark or Richard or maybe Daniel, you mentioned if you're a woman, where would you want to live? And so many of these Middle Eastern countries, ex-Israel, don't respect the rights of their own citizens. They treat their citizens terribly. And, the role of government is very small, and it's very clearly defined. Miss Rand's article on the nature of government is a must read. We could probably put it in the chat for that reason. And, the reality that so many of these Middle Eastern countries, the ones that have been around for thousands and thousands or hundreds of years, do such a poor job at respecting, let alone protecting, the rights of any of their citizens, I think is probably the best explanation of why they seem so quick to be at war or throwing down with countries outside, with other countries.
Just quickly, the specific position he has is authority over civil administration in the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria. So this is the thing I was thinking about. So yeah, basically this is the act of that specific administration rather than Israeli government itself. We have a super chat from Christopher, thank you, and another super chat from Christopher. Thank you so much. Marco, any comments on the comments of
Yeah.
these?
I mean, I particularly enjoy the comments coming from the European Union and our gracious leaders, the socialist armors and company. I mean, the EU never make a point about the occupation of Crimea. That's an occupation. They never heard of it. Russia has been invading another country, but hey, let's buy more gas from them. The the United Kingdom, what is it doing by supporting the creation of a Palestinian state? What are they actually doing? What are they actually proposing? They are proposing to reward the people who committed the slaughter on October the 7th. These animals went out, invaded Israel, and butchered over 1,000 people. They're still holding 50 or the 250 hostages that they held. And what does a bunch of socialist monsters do? Well, they effectively signal to Hamas, well done, guys. You know, if you do it again, if you do something even bigger, perhaps we're going to give you a few billions as well. I mean, this is absolutely the opposite of morality. This is not even wrong. This is absolutely evil. This is the total opposite of what you should do. And why are they doing this? For political gain, because they are afraid to lose a few thousand votes from the Muslim population in their own countries, and not standing up to this kind of stuff by appeasing the first person who's airing some grievance on a totally spurious and racist way is just the beginning of the end, really, for civilization.
Yeah, and to see all these Western leaders doing the equivalent of spitting out their false teeth when they see this news item yet again, because this is Israel not being pushed around. And Israel, for all that we have said it should go further in different areas and should fight back more strongly and more thoroughly and not concern itself so much about international opinion, it is nevertheless, in comparison to the rest of the world, it shows considerable fortitude and sense of self in terms of initiating that defense of its own nation and people. And that flies in the face of how Western leaders react to even their own countries, frankly, and their own populations. So that's what they also find galling under the surface, I think. But of course, you're never going to get them to admit that.
Deborah in the chat says, putting Smotrich in charge of restored land is a great improvement over the current situation where the IDF is in charge. Yeah, I mean, at least to my understanding, and I talked a little bit about it with Alex, as well as maybe some Israelis can tell me, but my understanding is Bezalel Smotrich, even as a finance minister, is doing a pretty good job, since he is, or at least is believed to be, sort of a free marketeer. So a lot of his solutions have been oriented towards more of a free market aspects of economy. Especially, I think when he originally did take position, he like openly stated, for example, he was behind when every country was putting up its tariffs against America after Trump started raising them. Israel was the only country that actually eliminated all its tariffs in return. So again, this is something that was done under him. And of course, he still has his religious aspects and he's for more funding when it comes to religious thing. But that's the unfortunate scenario in Israel, that you either pick a socialist that wants to destroy your country, or you pick a not even reluctant capitalist, but sort of like free marketeers. But unfortunately, they are religious. But at least when it comes to these decisions, the religion doesn't seem to would or sort of have that big of an effect, at least yet. We might see different in the future. Well, with covering this, oftentimes called the far-right Israeli minister, let's call the other far-right Israeli minister. Well, with this guy, I would apply it a bit more, but generally I dislike the far-right label, because oftentimes we are labeled as far right. So it's sort of sometimes it might be a bit of a broad category. But let's see what has happened when he visited one of the prisons in Israel. Oh, and I'm talking about Ben Gvir, if it wasn't clear.
אתם לא תנצחו אותנו. מי שיתעסק עם עם ישראל, מי שירצח לנו ילדים, מי שירצח לנו נשים, אנחנו נמחק אותו. אתם צריכים לדעת את זה לאורך כל ההיסטוריה.
So when Itamar Ben Gvir was in one of the Israeli prisons, now at least my understanding of the story is that he was there for some sort of a checkup, and he randomly met Marwan Barghouti, one of the main people behind the second Intifada, who is sitting in Israeli prison for basically charged with consecutive life sentences, or serving his consecutive life sentences. Jonathan, this has been, at least from what Richard said, it has been like a top story on BBC, like this is an Israeli minister like mocking a Palestinian prisoner. But the fact is, this guy is a horrible type of being that should have most likely gotten a death penalty. The fact that he is serving a prison is the least, and this like mocking or anything is like the least bad thing that has been done.
Yeah. I mean, mocking seems pretty minimal, and it's cutting down once again, kind of cutting down the tall poppies. I think hatred of the good for being the good, to kind of borrow a line from Miss Rand, and this is just yet another example.
We have a super chat from Bull Moose. Thank you so much. He says the translation's incorrect. He said erase, not obliterate. I think there's something to that. I think this specific video was the Middle East Eye, so yeah, maybe they've patched the translation. But yeah, he said whoever murders our children, we will, and if you are right, erase them. Which again is this guy is was a leader of a terrorist militia against Israel. I think this is the least that should happen to people like him. And again, the fact that people are, or at least Hamas, as part of negotiations, is hoping for a release of Marwan Barghouti is ridiculous. Marco, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, erase, obliterate, who cares, as long as these kind of people are removed from the planet. Frankly, I don't mind. To be honest, I'm a bit split on this one, because yes, okay, that's fine. You're making the point, blah blah blah. You're playing to your home crowd, but on the other hand, you're also providing airtime for this monster. I mean, this guy is as bad as it gets. He was during the Intifada, wasn't he? Was a uber butchered. He was responsible for the deaths of so many people, so many Israelis. So I wouldn't want anyone to see him. It's a bit like when they decided to bury Osama bin Laden in the sea, so they don't provide a place for people to worship him. You shouldn't allow the Hamas crowds to have a glimpse of this monster, because you just give them some hope, and as you mentioned, he's used as a currency for an exchange, and this guy should never be returned. He could be another Sinwar, so he should never be returned to freedom ever.
Yeah, you call him a monster, Marco, but the BBC in its headline calls him a prominent Palestinian prisoner. That's its way of describing him, and said that the far right Israeli minister, who the BBC considers to be the monster in the picture, taunts the prominent Palestinian prisoner. And I think one of the things I found interesting is BBC articles typically, they don't exactly make an argument and a considered case. They often just peter out. And sometimes they finish on a point they'd like you to remember, though. And the last paragraph here, I think, is quite telling. So I'll just quote it. Palestinians widely see Barghouti as the leader who could best unify different political factions and negotiate peace with Israel. I mean, they could. I mean, if he could join together different political factions, that would be in their hatred of Israel and their hatred of Jews. I can't see how that would bring peace with Israel, apart from if you're considering the annihilation of Israel to be the goal, which of course it is. But yes, I do second what Marco said here about whether this is a piece of showboating in front of the camera, whether it achieves anything other than raising his profile. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You can see it for yourself.
Yeah, and again, Israel was in the past considering the release of Marwan Barghouti as a show of good faith. So if releasing terrorists is a show of good faith, I mean, again, if Palestinians wanted a peace, they would want this guy locked up. Why would you want him back? This is not a peace leader. This is a terrorist. Jonathan, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Just thanks. I'm at capitalistpig.com, and thanks to the supporters for a great week.
Marco, any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many instances where Israel is highlighted as the bad guy. Here in the West, especially, there is a massive rise of anti-Semitism. Lots of institutions that are normally, things that we use all the time, or places where we go to. Like, for example, in London, the Royal Ballet and Opera. I mean, the Covent Garden Theatre. You would think, well, it's fairly, it's just entertainment. No, it's not. They've taken the decision not to put up a production in Tel Aviv this year, under pressure from the staff who hate Israel too much. They're too pro-Palestinian in order to do it. So, I urge anyone, start boycotting the people who are showing the scandal of behavior. Start boycotting the people. I know, it's not pleasant, but stop paying the people who are supporting the loss of civilization and its institutions.
Yeah. And I would just add, I mean, look at across the stories which we've covered within this episode. You've got different variations of different themes. You've got principles which cross over from one to another. But the thing that unites them all is the philosophy, is the ideas, and being able to interpret anything you come across, whether it's a news story, whether it's an aspect of your own personal life, all of that boils down ultimately to philosophy, and people can sort of truck along without being conscious of what theirs is, or thinking they've picked up bits of this and bits of that, and just sort of muddling along and not recognizing the contradictions. But you need to bring it into the forefront of your mind in order to understand why it is you think what you think, why this is the case here and that is the case there, and it's not a contradiction. Why? You've got to make sure you can join the links together. And of course, we would certainly argue that objectivism and the philosophy of Ayn Rand is the best way of doing that, and encourage anybody who hasn't read any of her work to start, maybe with philosophy, who needs it. In terms of where you can find us, the Briefly Objective, the sister channel to this, has lots of short clips that we've done on all the kind of subjects that we've covered in the course of particularly in the course of the Israel-Gaza conflict, if you want to call it that. And so please check it out. It's in the link below. Thanks.
And with that, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.